Welcome back to the Intellectual Freedom Podcast. I'm Dr. David Hopkins, your host and guide. Sometimes your friendly antagonist, sometimes supportive, sometimes just to talk with you about what's going on in this crazy world and maybe bring some sense to it, or in the minimum, bring hopefully another perspective on things that are going on around us. And today's episode is a sort of handoff. We're moving on from my education series straight back into a book study series. And you may be asking, why the pivot? Because the more and more I see the way our world is going, I think one of the most underrated and least talked about arguments for you to is for you to sit down and old school read books is very simple, because books will, notice I said will, not might or could or possibly, books will retrain your mind to think long thoughts again. So if you want to change your life, change the length of your thoughts, not the topic, not the app, the length of your thoughts. Books will retrain your mind to think long thoughts again. Now, what do I mean by long thoughts? What I'm talking about here are sustained concentration, that ability to stay with a complex idea, not for just 8 little seconds or a 30-second clip, but for pages and chapters and concepts that can unfold in front of you, not short little TikTok sugar highs. Books force you into spending time. And that's the very thing our world keeps stealing from you. And you may be thinking, how in the world can books retrain my brain? There's actually some neuroscience to back this up. When you read long-form content, especially physical books, your brain engages in what's called the default mode network, or DMN. And this is the same system that is responsible for deep reflection, introspection, empathy, and memory consolidation. Dr. Marianne Wolf, who's a cognitive neuroscientist and author of a book called Reader, Come Home, found that the modern mind, conditioned by digital media, is losing its ability to read deeply. Her studies are showing that people who read primarily on screens develop really bad skimming habits. I know I'm guilty of this. Jumping from word to word, scanning, and just simply not absorbing the content. But when you read a book, especially without distractions, your brain begins to rebuild the circuits of sustained attention. So the good news is we can actually fix this damage that social media and short form content has done to us. It's kind of like weightlifting for your prefrontal cortex. In fact, there was a 2014 study from Emory University that found that reading fiction increases connectivity in your brain, particularly in areas that are related to language and sensory motor function. Not just during reading, but for days after. In other words, books, when you read consistently, they leave a neurological trace, and you can actually rebuild some of that long-term thinking brain function. And why this matters? Because short thoughts are shallow, and they make for shallow people. And the world is drowning right now in shallow. We're being trained daily, hourly to think in fragments, notifications, headlines, tweets, hashtags, instant opinions with no foundation. We then react with strong emotion, but we don't reflect. Long thoughts are just different. They involve patience. They involve sequencing. They involve memory. And perhaps most importantly, the humility to listen longer than you talk. When you read a serious book, especially the kind we're going to tackle in this upcoming series, you're not just learning what they think, the author thinks, you're learning how you think. You're developing internal stamina, intellectual independence, discernment. Because here's the truth. If you can't hold a long thought, you're going to be held by someone else's. Books, in the end, are an antidote to this hive mind that is just everywhere today. And when I say this podcast is about intellectual freedom, I mean freedom from the mental conveyor belt. Books pull you off that belt. They make you stop, sit, think, wrestle, disagree, and ultimately grow. You simply can't find that in the world of TikTok, Instagram, Facebook Reels, and this is hurting your capacity to think and our capacity as a civilization to think deeply. In the episodes ahead, we're going to walk through text, old texts and new. But the goal in everything that I choose is to challenge, provoke, and stretch you. But it starts here with the decision to slow down, read deeply, and think long thoughts again. Because the alternative, it's mental slavery in a fast food world. So here's the challenge that I want to lay down for you and for me too. And for anybody out there who wants to grow their mind, make their mind stronger, instead of just scrolling mindlessly on stupid things into oblivion. Read with me. One book every month. That's it. I like setting challenges for myself, hard ones. And here's the proof I'm not playing. I'm coming up on a 4 month without one single drop of alcohol. That's the longest stretch I've done in decades. It's been humbling, and honestly, it's opened up mental space I forgot I had. And now, after 4 months, this is a new challenge for me, starting in November. And now I want to turn that energy towards something even more transformational, and that's intellectual growth. So, again, the plan, one book per month. You can do this. Each week I'll drop an episode unpacking just one or two key parts of the chapters that hit me, the lines that stick, the ideas that make me pause, even wince. You can compare it to what you were reading. Hopefully we reach consensus, or maybe we won't even, and you can let me know that too. And we'll break down these books, not in theory, but in real life. Not just what the author said, but what does this mean for how you and I live, how we think, how we perceive the world, how we show up in the world. And by the end of the month, we'll have wrestled with big ideas. And maybe if we're lucky, we're grown a little bit sharper in the end, a little more curious, a little less programmable. This is not a book club. It's kind of, I see it like a mind reset. And I'm bringing you along for my journey. And I think, as I look at prior podcasts, most of my podcasts that got a lot of the attention were book studies. So we're going to go back to it. And look, I get it. If reading the full book every month feels unrealistic, hey, no shame there. Do your best you can right along with the podcast, I promise. And the weekly episodes, they're still going to deliver practical, impactful lessons, I hope, that you can use, even if you didn't get the chapters read or the book read. But if you're up to it, if you're ready to get serious about trying to retrain your brain to think long thoughts again, then let's go. This is still education. So our transition from that series to this one, it's not really all that dramatic. We're just moving from one click. We're moving kind of a click over into real learning, critical thinking, mental clarity. And the first book we're tackling, here it is, Amusing Ourselves to Death by Neil Postman. I'm going to say that one more time. Amusing Ourselves to Death by Neil Postman. It's a brilliant takedown of how entertainment has hollowed out our public discord. What a perfect one to lead with in our book a month study here. More relevant now than ever. So if you have ever wondered how in the world did we get to this level of discourse and divide in America, Portman has a very worthy explanation. I think you're going to love it. So get your hands on it, buy it now, borrow it, steal it from your uncle's attic. I don't care how you find it, just get it. Promise, it isn't very expensive at all. I think I got mine on Amazon for $10 or so. And probably you can find it for free somewhere if you're really motivated to do so. So let's do this. One book at a time, 1 month at a time, one mind at a time. You know, the most endangered animal right now in America is probably long thoughts. All this short form content that you and I are exposed to. I don't care if it's a blog post, a TikTok video, a Reels, wherever it might be. It has us all thinking these very short thoughts. They're punchy, they're snackable, they're algorithm approved thoughts. They're not all bad, but notice what goes missing in these short things. Subtext. There's no nuance. There's no imaginative extension, the kind of connective tissue that lets an idea breathe, that you can kind of wander, that you can circle back, that you can withhold judgment, and you can kind of put pieces together to understand things deeper. See, a long thought, though, it's a very rare animal. It sort of meanders, follows strange scents, it pauses in trees, steps out into the clearing. Ultimately, you get to this spot where there's this coherent whole. That animal is endangered. And it goes extinct when the ecosystem of ideas becomes a bunch of hot takes. Short thoughts are cotton candy. Big volume, dissolves on contact. Long thoughts, the opposite. They're sort of like slow smoked brisket. You feel it, you chew it, you remember it. Oh, and don't think this phenomenon of short thinking is just a Gen Z TikToker. Oh, no. Let's face reality. Ever had that boss in your work that jumps quick to conclusions, like snap finger judgment, gets all emotional over little things, lacks the capacity to slow down, listen, think, and then decide? I bet you've had one of those. I know I have. Where do you think this quick hit, shallow thinking comes from? Even in our workplace, comes from the same place as our society. It's not pigeonholed just to silliness on your free time. This issue is big. But on the positive side, if you learn to slow down and think longer, you can separate yourself from the masses of people in the workplace. So there is huge value in having the mental muscle to think long thoughts. Technology has packaged our ideas into these algorithm-friendly bits because convenience wins. It's easy, it's simple. We're just fed stuff. That's what tech does well. It compresses things, it routes things, it optimizes things. Tools are supposed to be great servants and not our masters. However, this has become debatable in our hyper-driven online world of endless streams of information. So here's a challenge to you. The next time you catch yourself chasing the next tiny burst of novelty, after 20 minutes of mindless scrolling and time just sort of escaped you, you know you have those moments. I have them too. I'm not here to serve as some police of that thing, but let's face it, when we pixelate, we compress, we hollow out, we simplify, we empty out the spirit of things, it's not real life. Life is complicated. It's inconvenient. And often the most inconvenient things are the most valuable. I go back to politics. How often are we dumbing down very complex issues into 20-second sound bites? It's absurd. It's ridiculous. But see, our minds have been trained to live in these oversimplified worlds. And that's not life, because life isn't easy, simple, or non-complicated. And I know you might be out of practice. I know I am. This is one of the reasons I want to take this on myself. If you try to think long thoughts right now, you might suck at it. And that's good. It's good you recognize that. That's exactly how you know you're training. Your brain is overeager to tie a neat little bow on every single idea. Got it, next, and next, and next, and next. We live in a world of information ADHD, impatient, unfocused, because it has become conditioned on us by swiping. But thinking long thoughts, it's a skill like anything else. You get better by doing it more and more. And reading books are the gym for this. They demand that you lift heavier conceptual weight. They're not designed to be scrollable. They're not designed to just be consumed easily. And yeah, you're going to feel some mental soreness, and it's going to be tough. And there's going to be times where you're going to start reading and you're going to fall asleep. It's adaptation. Just keep going with it. Because here's the truth. Books, by their very nature, are going to invite you into longer conversations. They assume that you can sit with paradox of things. They assume you can follow an argument, not just sample it. They assume you can tolerate ambiguity without sprinting to certainty or some snarky comment. They also come pre-screened by history. 1,000 new books are born every day. Most will not even survive a month. The ones that make it here in what we're going to study are here because they kept feeding minds. They didn't trend for a few minutes and disappear. They endured. And the ones we will read together have endured even if they're new, like our first one. It's a newer look book for us, which is a brilliant kickoff to our study. Books also train your imaginative muscle. When you don't agree with a writer, you don't cancel them. You don't fly off the handle like when you're scrolling through social. You can spar with them intellectually. You learn to steel man the opposite of just a straw man simple argument. You make your opponent's argument stronger and then you answer it. That's intellectual adulthood. Books force you into this realm. We give you a simple approach for this first book or any book that we're reading. And if you're already an avid reader, you might get this, but prime the read with a long question. Not what's the point? Try what problem is the author leaving to solve? What do they fear happens if we ignore them? Long question, long thought. And I highly recommend you keep a pencil and a highlighter in your hand. I've started reading this first book and I'm actually slowing down to the point that I am writing out key ideas that I will narrow them down and we will talk about in the next podcast. Pause after each chapter. Don't try to rush through it. Try and figure out, here's what the author just did. Here's what I think they'll do next. Here's what they said. Map that idea out. Don't memorize it. Talk it out with the person. Hey, one conversation on a book can bear huge fruit. If any of you have ever been involved in book studies or had an amazing literature faculty member, you know how that works. So don't use techniques. Use tools. The goal is not to go fast. The goal is to be insanely diligent. We're not taking on very many pages per week. So I intentionally so that we can slow this thing down. So quick story right now. I am in the midst of a program to read the Bible in 1 year, which means I don't read very much every day in the Bible. Not everything, takes more than 15 minutes or so. Easy, right? Plus, I've read through the Bible before, probably 3 or 4 times by now, I suppose. So I have an idea of pretty much everything I read, but often I have to wake myself up and realize that I'm not just truly reading. I'm often just scanning for confirmation. I'm going through the book justifying my preconceived notions, and often I have to catch myself not listening to the author in whatever I'm reading, and I'm coaching that algorithm in my head. Find the quote, clip the clip, move forward. So I have to intentionally stop myself, and I have to ask better questions, and I need to slow down. So even myself, who reads something every single day, I have to relearn that speed isn't an enemy necessarily, but haste is. Haste is going to shrink your thoughts until only tiny little slogans survive. And the slogans can't carry truth very far. They just sort of crumble in the weather. And even worse, when you're reading and your mind's drifting somewhere else, just stop for a few seconds, reset, and go at it again. So in our education series, we did discuss clarity, like choosing your major, the cost of college, the ROI, and the direction that you should go. It's going to maximize that college experience or other life experience if college wasn't going to be the thing. That work matters, but the why behind all of it, your philosophy of life, gets built into the library, not the registrar's office or by punching numbers into a calculator or posting a diploma on the wall. So here's my transition. We're going to go from how to navigate the system to how to cultivate a mind that can outgrow any system. And that means books, powerful ones, books that invite long thoughts and push back when you coast. This works. Most of the highly successful people in our society, whether that would be Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Elon Musk, you hear of these CEOs that spend hours reading every single day. Do you suppose that's just a coincidence? It's not. And so what I want to do over these next few months is just tackle a sequence of works that train endurance and nuance, books that disagree with each other on purpose so that you learn to hold tension without snapping. So here's how we're going to do this series. Each month, one book, 4 episodes, 1 episode per week. The thesis, the mechanics, the opposition, the application, and the practice. Not auditing a class here, you're training your mind. And this is just an idea as I envisioned it, but I read with you from week to week and book to book. We might take unique angles. Nothing is in stone. We're just going to let this thing go where it's going to go. And, just some questions that I know I'll have, because whenever I teach a class and we read a book in college classrooms, this gets asked, can I do an audio book? I would say, yeah, maybe as a supplement, but I really want you to get the actual physical book and read it. I want this experience to be intellectual and tactile. I want you to go old school, and I want you to hold the book, and I want you to turn the pages on. I want you to write in the book. I want you to own the book. I want you to make the learning more intimate and yours. That would be my opinion, and that's what I'm doing. And, I don't think an audiobook hurts, but your brain doesn't react the same way to the verbal word as it does in the written word when you read it. And, repetition is the mother of learning, though, as they say. And sometimes, heck, if you put in an audiobook while you're commuting to work, but then at night you come home and you read, wow, you double reinforce it. So that would be my suggestion on that. What if you fall behind? You can't fall behind in this conversation. I mean, the podcast can be played anytime for free as we progress. The last thing I want you to do is feel stressed to keep up. This should be an exercise in you, building you up, not about a fixed timeline or schedule. Start and finish when you're done. You don't have to worry about on my schedule. I'm going to give you a recommended timeline that I'm going to follow week to week. And if you can do it, I think that builds mental muscle and discipline. The more you read every single week and you set yourself a goal that you're going to finish the reading for that week, I think it's very beneficial to do that, but it's not something you have to do. Do I need to agree with the author to benefit? Absolutely not. I sure hope not, at least not on everything. This is all about you reaching your own conclusions on topics that I think are profound and relevant and important to the world right now. What if I'm busy? Yeah, perfect. Perfect. We're all busy, right? Long thoughts protect your time by killing nonsense. Consider this as a time saver disguised as reading. And can we be real for just one little second? Okay, I know our days and our lives get busy, but really, how much time do you spend watching TV or playing video games or scrolling your socials in a day? Be honest now. I can almost guarantee you can find 15 to 20 minutes every single day. You just have to consciously make the effort to read. And you're still going to have time for your downtime to enjoy just mindless things as well. But you can find a time to do this. So I'm not asking you to read books because of some abstract concept of education. That's cute and all, but I'm asking because the habit of short form thinking is sweeping the world and it's uncontested. And let's face it, people are miserable, confused, divided, because, well, we're not thinking very soundly. No stones being cast in saying this. My own thinking is not always sound. But I do know this, one of the most practical, economical, and effective ways to think better is to read. It's just a proven fact. The problem isn't that information in our world is scarce and you don't have enough of it. Heck, we are buried in bite-sized data. Non-stop, 24/7. The problem is what we are consuming is for the most part pure sugar rush. There's no substance. We're outsourcing our attention and we are superficially entertained rather than becoming intelligent and deep thinkers. And then we wonder why life feels shallow, why people are so angry and anxious riddled and divided. So we want the fruits of deep roots without planting anything. And that doesn't work. Reading books, on the other hand, is that root work. So here's the invitation. Join me. One book a month. 4 episodes per book. We'll argue, we'll laugh, we'll underline, we'll change our minds in public. We'll train the length of our thoughts. We'll expand the length of our thoughts until nuance feels normal again. We'll become the kind of people who can't be reduced to a hashtag, a camp, a tribe, a canned script, because intellectual freedom isn't about winning an online debate. It's about becoming someone who can carry a thought long enough to make meaningful, deep, profound conclusions in our personal lives, our work lives, our relationships, and just having a more holistic understanding of the world we are living in. This is important. One of the most important skills you can ever master. So, try it just 1 month. I invite others to do it with you, friends, family, or do it solo. I don't care how you do it. But how about this? Start next week. Heck, start right now. Get that book. If this resonates with you, subscribe, share this episode. I hope you'll take on this challenge with me. It's an important one. Next week, we open book 1. Pencil ready. Get the book. Go through the first 3 chapters if you can. Your freedom begins now. Your long thinking begins now. Thanks for listening to this episode, and let's talk next week as we start in on the book Amusing Ourselves to Death. I'm going to say that one more time. Amusing Ourselves to Death by Neil Postman. Postman. It is a New York Times bestseller, tried and true book, and it is an awesome, entertaining book to begin with. So I hope you will join me. Until the next episode, have a wonderful week.